The full moon hung heavy in the sky, casting an ethereal glow upon the dilapidated Victorian house perched atop the hill. Its windows, dark and vacant like the eyes of a skull, stared out into the night. The house was a silhouette, a jagged tooth against the silver backdrop. Silence pressed in from all sides, broken only by the rustling of leaves in the wind. A lone car climbed the winding drive, its headlights momentarily piercing the darkness. Anna stepped out of the car, her breath catching in her throat as she took in the imposing structure. A shiver ran down her spine, despite the mildness of the night. Her heels clicked on the gravel, the sound unnaturally loud in the stillness. She dragged a suitcase, its wheels bumping on the uneven ground. Her gaze swept across the house, taking in its crumbling facade, the overgrown ivy clinging to its walls like skeletal fingers. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. An unsettling stillness hung over the place, as though even the air held its breath. Anna hesitated at the foot of the porch steps, her hand hovering over the tarnished doorknob. A wave of unease washed over her, urging her to turn back, to escape the suffocating silence. She pushed the feeling aside, steeling herself.
It's just an old house. I have nothing to fear.
Taking a deep breath, she turned the knob and stepped inside. Dust motes danced in the faint moonlight filtering through grimy windows. The air inside was stale and heavy, thick with the scent of decay and something else she couldn't quite place, a cloying sweetness that prickled her nostrils. Anna surveyed the cavernous hall, her footsteps echoing on the bare wooden floor. Cobwebs clung to the ornate chandelier hanging from the high ceiling, its crystals dull and lifeless. She wandered through the house, each room as desolate and silent as the last. In the living room, a fireplace yawned, cold and empty. She ran her fingers over the dusty mantelpiece, imagining the flames that once danced within, bringing warmth and life to this now desolate space. She continued her exploration, each room a testament to forgotten grandeur. In the dining room, a table stood frozen in time, set for a meal long since past. The chairs were draped in dusty white sheets, resembling ghostly figures gathered for a macabre feast. Anna could almost hear the phantom clinking of glasses, the murmur of spectral conversations. A shiver danced down her spine and she quickened her pace, eager to escape the oppressive atmosphere of the room. Upstairs, bedrooms stood empty, their beds stripped bare, wardrobes agape like hungry mouths. The house seemed to press in on her, its emptiness suffocating. The silence, once unsettling, now throbbed with an almost audible hum, a low vibration that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. Anna paused, her hand on the chipped railing of the landing, listening intently. A floorboard creaked somewhere in the darkness above, followed by the softest of sighs. Anna froze, her heart pounding against her ribs.
Am I imagining things?
The house seemed to hold its breath, the silence amplifying every tiny sound. She strained her ears, listening for any repetition, but there was nothing but an eerie quiet. As the days turned into nights, the strange occurrences persisted.
Leave. Leave.
Whispers brushed against her ears as she tried to sleep, faint and indistinct, yet laced with an undeniable malice. Floorboards groaned under unseen footsteps, and shadows flickered at the edge of her vision. Anna tried to rationalize these events, attributing them to the age of the house, the wind whistling through cracks, her own overactive imagination. Yet a seed of doubt had been planted, growing steadily with each passing moment. She began to notice things she hadn't before. The way the shadows in the house seemed to move independently of any light source, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes. The way the temperature would plummet in certain rooms, a bone-chilling cold that clung to her skin like a shroud. The feeling of being watched, of eyes following her every move, unseen but ever present. One evening, as Anna sat reading in the living room, a book of local history she had found tucked away in a dusty shelf, she heard a distinct thump from upstairs.
What was that?
It wasn't the creaking of floorboards this time, but a heavy thud, as though something had fallen or been pushed. Her heart hammered in her chest, a cold fear spreading through her veins.
She slowly ascended the stairs, her hand trailing along the smooth mahogany banister.
The air grew colder as she climbed, a tangible shift that sent a shiver down her spine.
She reached the top of the stairs and paused, listening intently.
Silence. But it was a charged silence, pregnant with anticipation.
She moved down the hallway, drawn towards the room where she had heard the noise. The door was slightly ajar, and a sliver of pale moonlight illuminated the dusty interior. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open and stepped inside.
The room was surprisingly bare, devoid of furniture save for a large, ornate mirror propped against the far wall. Its surface was tarnished with age, the silver backing peeling away in places, giving it a distorted, almost sinister appearance.
Anna's gaze was drawn to the mirror, her reflection staring back at her, distorted and unfamiliar. She took a step closer, her breath catching in her throat as she noticed something strange.
It wasn't her reflection that was distorted, but the reflection of the room behind her. The mirror showed the room as it should be, furnished, lived in, a fire crackling merrily in the hearth. A woman sat in a rocking chair by the fire, her back to Anna, a book in her lap.
The woman turned her head slightly, and Anna could have sworn she saw a flicker of movement, a glimpse of eyes meeting hers in the reflection. Her breath hitched in her throat, and she stumbled back from the mirror, her heart pounding against her ribs.
The image in the mirror remained unchanged, the woman still staring out at her, a sad smile playing on her lips.
Anna fled the room, her mind reeling from what she had seen. The house no longer felt empty, but filled with a presence unseen yet palpable.
She knew then with chilling certainty that she was not alone. The whispers, the shadows, the strange occurrences, they were not figments of her imagination, but the stirrings of something ancient and malevolent. The house was alive.
Panic welled up inside her, threatening to consume her. She had to get out to escape the suffocating darkness that had settled upon the house.
But as she turned to flee, the house seemed to react. The floorboards groaned beneath her feet, the walls seeming to close in around her. The shadows in the corners deepened, swirling and twisting like living things.
She ran, her bare feet slapping against the cold, hard floor. But the house worked against her, its layout shifting, corridors extending endlessly before her. Doors slammed shut, locks clicked, barring her escape. She was trapped, a prisoner in her own home.
The air grew thick and heavy, making it difficult to breathe. A low growl echoed through the house, vibrating through the floorboards and up her legs.
The shadows on the wall coalesced, taking on a more defined shape.
A figure began to emerge, tall and skeletal, its eyes glowing with an eerie green light.
Anna backed away, her heart pounding against her ribs, her mind screaming at her to escape. But there was nowhere left to run.
The figure advanced, its long, sharp fingers reaching out towards her, its touch promising unimaginable pain.
Terror lent her a burst of strength, and she stumbled back, her hand connecting with something cold and hard. The old grandfather clock, its pendulum long since stilled, toppled over with a deafening crash.
The figure hesitated, momentarily distracted by the noise.
Anna seized her chance and lunged for the front door, her fingers wrapping around the cold metal doorknob. But it wouldn't budge. It was as though the house itself was holding it shut, refusing to let her escape.
She turned back, her eyes searching frantically for another way out, but every exit was sealed. The house had her now, trapped within its decaying embrace.
The figure advanced, its grin widening, revealing rows of sharp, pointed teeth. Anna closed her eyes, bracing herself for the inevitable. A cold, clammy hand closed over her mouth, stifling her scream.
She opened her eyes to see the figure standing directly in front of her, its face inches from her own. Its eyes, glowing with an unnatural light, seemed to bore into her very soul. A low chuckle vibrated from its chest, sending chills down her spine.
"Welcome home, Anna," it rasped, its voice a hollow whisper that seemed to slither into her ears. "We've been expecting you."
The house sighed around her, a sound of contentment, of victory. Anna was trapped, her fate sealed within the walls of the silent house, another soul claimed by its darkness. The house itself seemed to pulse with a malevolent joy, its windows glowing with an eerie inner light, a sinister smile spreading across its decaying facade. The full moon watched impassively from its perch in the night sky, bathing the scene in its cold, unforgiving light.